Hey, welcome. I decided that tonight we would get back to some work streaming rather than Minecraft streaming. We're going to talk about the web-based workload that we started actually quite a while ago now. I'm slightly embarrassed about how long it's been since we talked about this. So I thought we'd do a quick review of everything that we have before we actually jump in. So I went through and redeployed all of the CloudFormation templates that we had created in the last session. So you can see them up top here. We've got a customer managed CMK KMS that we're going to use for encrypting all the components. We've got our VPC, our virtual private cloud. We're going to dump like things like load balancers, EC2 instances, do all that configuration. We also have an endpoint, a VPC endpoint set up just to demonstrate how this would work with, in particular, the systems management solution, SSM. But we've got lots of other options here, but we've just set that one up. And then we've also put in a really important tool that we often find folks overlook is VPC Flow Logs. So VPC Flow Logs, if you're not familiar, provides us with logging of all the traffic that's flowing in and out of, in our case, the entire VPC. You can set this up to do like subnets or EC2, like ENIs, I guess, that are associated with EC2 instances, but we're doing the whole thing. Okay. So we can have a look at the VPC here. And you can see we've only got the default VPC and then the VPC that we've set up. And if we just have a look at what this VPC, how it's structured, pretty basic, right? We've got two public subnets and two public and two private subnets in each availability zone. And I kept it pretty basic. Our public subnets are too large, but for today it works. They're /20s. And then our private subnets, I would say are about right. They're /19. So lots of IP space in these private subnets. Okay. And you can see they're spread across multiple availability zones, which comes in handy later on when we want to make sure that in our case, our web-based workload is up and running all the time. Okay. We've got individual route tables for each of the for each of the subnets. So this gives us the ability to control traffic for individual public subnets, individual private subnets. You'll see really the only difference here is that the public subnets have the default route pointing to the internet gateway, and the private subnets, their default route points to NAT gateways. And we've actually got two NAT gateways. Hey, Kevin, welcome back. We've got two NAT gateways. We're not doing Minecraft tonight. We're actually going to learn some stuff this time around rather than try to make rotational force machines in Minecraft. So we've got our private subnets and they point to our NAT gateways, and we've deployed two NAT gateways, one in each availability zone. So again, if there's a problem in an AZ within the region where we've got this, the traffic will flow. The way that I like to think about it is I kind of like to picture it as a chimney, right? I want the smoke to travel up and down that chimney, right? And in my mind, a chimney is like an AZ. I know that I'm going to have some cross AZ chatter for things that we're going to talk about later, like failover of database instances and things like that, load balancers. But for the most part, if the traffic originates in AZA, I want that traffic to flow up and down inside that chimney, right? Inside that availability zone to get out to the internet or come back in. Okay. So that's really what we've got there. We've connected it to the outside world with an internet gateway. What else do I want to show you here? We mentioned about the endpoints that we have set up. So we've got a couple endpoints set up in this case for various services that are associated with the SSM solution. And you can see them here, SSM messages, and EC2 messages. And just like we do with our NAT gateways, they're actually, I think if I select it over here, I can show you this. Yeah. We've got them associated in each of the private subnets. Again, we want to make sure that if anything goes wrong here, we've got basically components in each AZ within this deployment. Anything else we want to talk about here? Security groups. We've got the security group for the endpoint service. This is the default security group. I don't know why these filters aren't working. I'm sure it's user error, but since they updated this console, it doesn't seem to work quite the same way. And we're going to do something else here. We're actually going to go in and we're going to edit this. We would normally do this in a script, but since I'm looking at it, I'm just going to remove both the inbound and outbound rules on the default security group. And really the reason that we do that is we don't want anything associated with, or if something does get associated with the default security group, we really want to make sure that it doesn't, or whatever it is, doesn't have the ability to communicate with anything. And this goes along with some of the security best practices. I can't remember if it's in the CIS benchmark or the AWS Foundations benchmark that are now part of the Security Hub solution, but one of those would throw an error at us if we left the rules in here for the defaults. And actually, you really should do this in all of the default groups. You would want to script this, a simple script, kind of loop through and find the default security groups and just remove these rules. But since we're in here, we'll do it like this. Okay. And you can see that this is really simple. We're essentially allowing inbound traffic into this security group. Okay. So nothing too complicated here. And that gets us to what I want to do tonight. So we've got that VPC all ready to go. And then what I'd like to do now is set up an Amazon machine image, so an AMI. And I thought tonight we could get through the AMI process. And I think if we have enough time, see if we can get an auto scaling group and stuff like that. To kind of just, I know it's also holiday time, so I'm sure people have places to be. So let's jump over to EC2 and we'll go through this process. The way that we normally do this is exactly how I'm going to do this tonight. I have a couple different ways that we approach machine images. We have what I like to call a vanilla image. So a vanilla image is if I go in here and I say launch instance, one of these is a vanilla image, right? Something that comes from AWS, I consider it what I call a vanilla image. So it really has nothing on it. It's an operating system. It's a starting template and nothing more. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into what I like to call a foundational AMI. It has all the components on it that don't change a whole lot. Okay. So as an example, we're building a web server. So I'm going to just put Apache on here. Really easy. Okay. We probably don't want Apache to change a whole lot. We want to control the versions of the packages that we have installed here. I'm going to put the agent for Cloudwatch, the unified Cloudwatch log agent on here, which we're going to show you how that works as well. Those are the types of things like that I would call a foundational image. Okay? That's really what we're going to build today. The other types of images that I like to build are what I call half-baked images and fully baked images. So a fully baked image, pretty self-explanatory. It has everything that we need. When that EC2 instance comes to life, it's ready to serve request. Okay. A half-baked image would have like those foundational components and maybe some other bits and pieces on it. But when it comes to life, we have to finish the configuration. We have to do some sort of bootstrapping. So we're going to use the Linux version 2 here. And we'll use one of the new T3s. We'll use a T3A small. We don't really need a lot of horsepower for this. And we're going to turn all of this into a CloudFormation template later. But to stand this up, we're going to basically work on it. Actually, sorry, you know what? I just jogged my memory. I want to be able to access this without having to get SSH up and running. So we are going to cancel this and we're going to create a role in here that we're going to use. And we're going to create a role to provide us access through what's called an instance profile to the systems manager service. Okay. If you're not familiar, an instance profile is the way that you can associate an IAM role to an EC2 instance, which means anything running on that EC2 instance, like the SSM agent, like the Cloudwatch logs agent, like an application that we install on this EC2 instance later on, would then have the ability to get access to AWS services by the permissions that we assign to it through the role. And we're going to keep this really simple today. We're going to create a bare bones IAM role and create an instance profile and give it enough access to access these SSM services that we need. In particular, the sessions manager solution, which would let us get on this machine without having to open up SSH. Okay, and I'll show you that. So here's what we want to do. We want to create a role and then we want to create an instance profile. One of the other things I'll just point out is if you create a role that's going to be used for an EC2 instance in the management console, you don't actually have to do this the process of creating it in the management console will create the instance profile. But we have to do that ourselves manually here. So we're going to start with a role, and then we'll do the instance profile. So let me grab the editor here. And these are the templates that we built before. And we're going to add a new one out here, and we're just going to call it IAM. And we'll grab a description. I wonder if I have, sometimes I leave, yeah, it looks like I maybe have left off there's like a templating version you can have as well, like a template format, I think it is. We won't worry about it too much. Okay. And like I always do, we'll set our placeholder for parameters, but we'll start on the resources section. So I know that I need a role, so we're just going to call this role 0. And we know that's IAM role. And we need to define our properties. So let's see what we got here. Like we've done in the past, we are simply going to look for the things that we know are required. Hey, Kevin, would you still consider this foundational category? Yeah, I would. Yeah, we're just putting kind of the components that every time I launch this web server, I want on that web server. So the basic agents like SSM and the Unified Cloudwatch Log Agent and the Apache server, right? The Apache application. Right. So the first thing is we need our assume role policy document. Okay, so let's have a look at the format of this. There's an example here at the end, I'm sure. There we go. Okay, so this is exactly what we need. So we need our version statement. It's always going to be 2012-1017. And then we have our actual statement. And in our case, we just need a really simple setup. We need to allow a service, in this case, EC2, Amazon, AWS.com, the ability to assume this role. That's all we need. Okay, pretty basic stuff. STS, if you're not familiar with that, is the service. So this is the security token services, and this is the API call that we're allowing. If you look at these action statements, anything to the left of the colon is the service. Anything to the right of the colon is the actual like API or the action. One of the things that I often do, like if I'm not sure what I want for the action part of this, but I know the service, I might go here and I would just say AWS IAM actions STS. And it's normally going to drop you right on the right page. That's not the right page. Is it this one here? I think it's maybe the first one. This is what I wanted. And now I've got a list of all of the actions that are available. And I also will have in here the short form for the service. So I've got the security token service. Okay. And like I said, this one's really simple. All we want is assume role. Okay. Easy. We can make it a lot more interesting, but in this case, it's simple, and we're just going to allow the EC2 service to assume it. So that's all we need for that. And we need, actually, we might need another component here because we need to assign a policy to it. So let's see if we go back here. So let's put a description actually, so that we know what this is for later. Let's just call it web demo. This is the other thing I was thinking about. We are going to use a managed policy ARN, or ARN, I should say. So in this case, we want to use what's documented here. Okay. So we need this one for sure. That's required, right? And the way that you get the ARN for this is we just go back over here, go to the IAM console, and we can just search for that in roles. There we go. Okay, let's try something a little shorter. All right. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm looking for a role. I'm not looking for a role. I'm looking for a policy. There we go. I'm creating a role. So this is what we need, and this is the ARN that identifies that. So we just copy that and we dump it here. If you're digging around in here and you do a search, let's say SSM, you will also find this one, Amazon EC2 role for SSM, and you can see in the description that Amazon is deprecating this. So please use this role instead. So make sure you're assigning the new role, or sorry, I keep saying role, the new policy to the role that you're creating. Okay, so that's the one you want. And then based on the documentation, we're not going to worry about a custom policy for S3 access. Only required if we plan to join our EC2 instance to a Windows server. We're not going to, or sorry, our EC2 instance for Windows to a directory. There we go. We're using Linux, so we're not going to worry about that. I am going to put this policy on because we are going to look at the Unified Cloudwatch Logs agent at some point, and I'll do the same thing. I'll search for it, and I'll grab the ARN. Now, we could create these from scratch if we wanted. Like, we could create custom policies. But for this type of thing, an AWS managed policy probably is a good way to start. What I would suggest is once this is up and running and you kind of have everything going the way you want, you might want to look at the Access Advisor in IAM and determine if you actually need like all of the features or all of the access that let's say this requires. You might be able to tighten it up a little bit with your own custom policy. Okay, but we'll leave those two there. Is there anything else we need? That's it. Okay, so we're just going to put those two on there. And that sets up our role. But remember, we need our instance profile as well. Because since we're not creating this in the AWS management console, this won't exist. So let's go back and find over here. Yeah, it's just instance profile. Oh, sorry, IAM instance profile. And we'll set the properties up for this. So a name, we're not going to give it a name because you can see if we want to update it later, it requires a replacement. So we'll just let it generate one itself. We're not going to worry about the path. And we do have to assign it a role. So in this case, we're going to say roles. And I'm not sure if this is right. We're going to go back and check. Okay, so we're going to refer to the role that we're going to create earlier on. And because we want to make sure that that role is there, we're going to use a depends on attribute. Without this depends on attribute, what may happen is CloudFormation is going to try to create these resources in parallel to speed up the deployment time. We want to make sure that this role exists before we try to assign it to the instance profile, right? Otherwise, might not be what we want. Okay. And we don't actually need parameters for this. We're not going to tag anything. There's no reason to do that, so we'll leave those out. We are going to put some outputs though. Okay, so I want instance profile. I'll use the same name. I just lost my lighting. Kevin, you're used to this. Alexa, turn on the office.
Okay.
I'm changing the lights in here soon because I thought this was kind of cool at the beginning, and now it's just a pain in the butt. And we want to refer, we basically want the name of this instance profile. So let's go back and we can check the return values for this. And we just want the logical ID. So we can use a ref. Okay, so we're going to say ref instance profile 0. And we are going to set an export value for this. I don't know if we'll use it, but we're going to set it now anyways. And we're going to use an AWS intrinsic function to do this. And we'll call this just instance profile. What this means is when we run this, we have to provide a stack name to CloudFormation. And it's going to take that name and it's going to dump it out. It's going to substitute it in here to dynamically generate this for us. Okay. Now we have to check if this is the right return value for this. So let's see, what does it ask us for? It asks us for the name of the role to associate with the instance profile. So that means we got to go back here and we got to look at the return value. So ref returns the resource name. I think that's right. This usually messes me up because sometimes you have to use a get attribute call, but I think this is good. Okay. So we've got our role defined, our instance profile, and then some outputs to be able to get the instance profile that we're going to use later on. So we've got everything we need. What we need to do now is add it to our deployment script. We're actually going to do this up here. And we'll say, so this is just our really simple example of a GitLab CI script. And we'll say IAM, so validate that there's no basic errors in the template. We've been tooling around a little bit with something called CloudFormation Guard, which, oh, Travers, you think that's fine the way I got it? Okay, we'll give it a whirl and see. We've been tooling around a little bit with something called CloudFormation Guard, which allows us to put a rule set in. And it's another way of, we can run that as the validation process before these templates are actually deployed. But I haven't tested it out yet with this particular environment. So for now, we're just going to use the built-in validate template command. Okay. And then we're gonna basically just copy all of this. Okay, we just gotta get rid of these names. Okay. And I'm gonna move this onto a couple lines because it's easier to read. All of our regular stuff here. Wait. I think that's pretty much it. Now I usually mess this up, so let's make sure we have deploy IAM up here. We do. So in theory, this should be deployed. And we'll check that by, hang on one second. There's a couple things in our GitLab server that I don't want to share, so just give me a second here. I want to make sure I'm in the right project before I share everything. All right, I'm back. Magic. Okay, so we have an error, which if you've watched any of these before, I'm not surprised. Invalid template reset depends. Oh, did I know? I just must have typed that wrong. So let's go back here. Depends on. There we go. Try this again. All right, didn't fail right away, so that's good. Just give this a second, and then we'll jump back and actually, I guess we could go over here. Go to CloudFormation. Oh, I got an error in the deployment. What did I type? Oh, okay. Yeah. So we are deploying resources into IAM. So you need to actually set the capabilities here. So it's just an extra tag. We basically have to say capabilities. That's it. Let's try it again. When I'm not writing CloudFormation templates, I'm waiting for a pipeline to finish. And usually when the pipeline doesn't work, it's because I've spelt something wrong. Okay, there we go. So we've got a change set now, right? And we can go look at the change set and we can see any inputs. There's nothing that we passed in. We can see the template that we're going to run. Everything looks good. If we actually go back to the changes, you can see exactly what it's doing. It's adding the instance profile and the role. You can see there. And since they're brand new, there's no replacements or anything happening. So we're going to execute. So fingers crossed we got everything spelt properly, and this will work. Let's see what happens. Okay, so there's our role. Can add another thing that I wait for. I wait for CloudFormation deploys quite a lot too. I get increasingly unsure that it's going to work the longer it takes. Come on. So there's our instance profiling in create mode. I'm feeling pretty confident, so why don't we do this? Famous last words. And I know that's going to bite me in the ass now. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to stand up an instance. And remember, we'll deploy this programmatically later, but this is just to create that foundational component. So we're going to go back. We're going to say T3A small. It doesn't, as long as I just did that instance profile correctly, we're good to go. I'm going to put this in a private subnet because we can access it with Systems Manager, fingers crossed. Okay, we don't worry about any of this. This is where that role comes up. There it is. I'm sure that's it, but we're going to go back and look. It's still creating. That's interesting. I think it's going to fail at this point. Oh, there we go. Okay. Success. So if we go to outputs, this is what I did in the outputs section. And the reason I did that is I just wanted to be able to see the instance profile, because then back here, I can make sure that I have the right one. Okay. We're not going to worry about any of this. We're going to leave everything else the default. We're going to go to storage. And what we're going to do here is make sure that it's encrypted. Now, one of the things that we've done in our demo account is we've enabled default encryption for EBS. And you can see the key that we've set up for this, right? And I don't know why we did this. We probably should change this, but we're just using the AWS managed key for the default encryption. We should probably change that, but I think we want to use something with an alias on it. And let's just double check. We can go back here again. And if we go to the KMS, yeah, see here, same thing, alias demo. So we want to make sure that we're using alias demo, which I guess is just this one, okay? And we're going to leave the delete on termination. That'll be important for later. We're going to add some tags. And I always do this. I just label them AMI builder so that later on I know what this is. Up to you. And we are going to create this. It won't be around very long, so we're not going to put it in code. And we're also just we're going to test our luck here, and we're going to remove all the rules. Okay. It still has outbound rules, but it has no inbound rules, which is fine because we don't really need them because if we did that instance profile correctly, we can get at this with the SSM service. So we'll launch it. And I am going to just hedge my bets here, and I'm going to assign a key pair to this so that if I need to, I can get into it. Okay. If everything works, we don't need it. Actually, we won't be able to get to it anyways because it's in a private subnet, so it doesn't really matter. We're committed at this point to our path. So we'll give that a minute to come up. We can listen to Minecraft tunes in the background here as we're waiting. Hopefully it won't take very long. Okay, running, it's initializing. As this is building out, assuming that this comes to life, we can get at it, we can install those agents, then really the next part is I'd like to test out a base auto-scaling group. Let's see if this is done before I... No, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a launch template. So a launch template, you can see we've got one here already. Let's actually, if this is not deployed, yeah, I'm going to delete this. Actually, before I do that, let me check something. Okay, so there's no auto-scaling group. This must be just something left over. So we're going to delete this just to keep it cleaned up. All right, so a launch template is really just a bunch of instructions. Okay? And then the launch template we will associate with an auto-scaling group. Okay? So let's see here if we can get through that as well tonight. This is still initializing. So let's go back over to here, and I'm just going to create something called, we'll just call it EC2. Okay, pretty self-explanatory again. So what we're going to do here is deploy a launch template and auto-scaling group for our web-based demo. Okay? We are going to need some parameters here, but we'll do our same thing, resources. And I need to pull up the documentation for this because there's a lot of options. So we're going to go EC2. First thing we want to build is our launch template. So let's see what we got here. Pretty basic, but we've got a fair amount of info we can put in here. So let's say, I'll just call it LT0. And we'll define our properties. And we need launch template data. And it's going to have a lot of stuff. All right, so let's go through this. A block device map we're not going to worry about. That is to add an additional drive to this. For now, we're just going to leave the root drive. We might mess around with it a little later on, but we'll leave that. Actually, let's go down here and we can talk about them. Don't need it. We're not going to do any sort of capacity reservation. We're not going to mess with the CPU. We're not going to worry about credits. For now, we're not going to disable API termination. I want to be able to move these around right now. And we're also going to have the auto-scaling group manages for us. So we want the auto-scaling group to be able to terminate things if it needs. We are going to make sure that this is on. Okay, so EBS optimized. True. To be honest, I don't know if we have to actually enable that anymore on these newer instances. I want to say that by default on newer instances, EBS optimization is enabled, but we're going to turn it on anyways. Okay. Don't have to worry about GPU. We don't have to worry about accelerators. We're not using the enclave service, no hibernation. Here's our instance profile. So IAM instance profile. Now we're going to make this a little, actually, no, let's do it the way that we would normally do this. So I'm going to say IAM stack, and this is a string, and we'll pass some information into it. Now, here's the tricky part. I have to remember the import values, the import function. So we're going to do our trusty to come back, okay? Do we need the image ID? I want to say that we do. Okay. Can't spell it. But we're going to do the same thing here. And we're going to put it up here. We're going to call it EC2 image ID. And we are going to set a default value for this. Don't have to worry about instance shutdown. We don't have to worry about market options. We are going to pass in an instance type. So we're going to start up here and we're going to say instance type is a string. The default, we're going to say a T3A small, and then we're going to give a few options for this. So we'll say T3A small, T3A medium, and T3A large. Okay. So what that's going to do is basically, well, give us the default option. But also, if you were deploying this in the, I can't spell, if you're deploying this in the console, you get a drop-down list and you could just select. Okay, so we're going to say instance type refers to instance type. Kernel ID key name. We're gonna take some chances on this one because it's just a demo. We're not gonna put a key name on. So why is that slightly risky? I'm making an assumption here that if we need access to this machine, we're going to use something like Systems Manager. We wouldn't have SSH access to this machine using the administrator key, the admin key. So you can see here, if you don't specify, you can't connect to it unless you choose an AMI, this blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think we should be fine here with Systems Manager. Speaking of which, let's go back. Okay, the moment of truth. We should be able to click connect, click Session Manager, and we are on the machine. Okay, so there we go. We'll come back and finish this in a bit because we got to install those agents. But now at least we know that this is working. So I'm going to leave key pair off. We're gonna give it a whirl and see. We don't have to worry about license. We don't have to worry about. Give me 1 second here. No, we don't have to worry about that. Monitoring, and what this is we want to enable detailed monitoring. If we were deploying this, we would do that. Okay, and I want to say, let me just scroll to the top again. I can't remember the structure of monitoring. Yeah, it's like this. So it's a tough one. Enabled, true. Scroll down through here again. Key name, where we're monitoring. We're not going to do anything about networks. We're not going to do a placement group. We don't need a RAM ID. Okay, so we do need security groups, which is, yeah, right here. So why don't we do this? Security group 0. Let's go. Is it IDs? Yeah. And we're going to say ref SG0. Now that means that we want to make sure that that security group is here before. So we're going to do that same depends on thing, SG0. Okay. Now let's build this out before we go any. Actually, let's finish this. Tag specifications. Yeah, tag specifications, plural. Maybe. There we go. And I want to say, yeah, dash. All right. So we're going to say dash resource type. And I think it's just EC2. Oh, instance. So we want to make sure we add these to the instance. And then we need tags. And we're going to use, if you watched before, we're going to use key is owner, ref owner, key is owner email with a value of owner email, and then our environment, which is a value of environment. And we'll set those properties up here. And for environment, we're going to make it like the instance type. We're going to set it to the default of development. Try that again. And we'll also allow a value of production. So that fills all of this out. Okay, so that's our launch template. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go back here and fill in our security group. Okay. So group description, I'm going to give it a description. Let's say EC2. Well, we'll just call it web-based EC2 security group. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to give it a group name. Oh, look at this. Update requires replacement, but it is required. Okay. We're not going to mess around with the egress. We're just going to leave the default, and then we're going to set up the ingress. Actually, you know what? We're not going to give it any rules for now. We're just going to tag it. Okay. I have a method to my madness here. Here's what I'm thinking. For the time being, we don't need anything to come into this machine. We can get at it through SSM, right, when it launches. And we can go back and we can add those ingress rules from the load balancer once we stand that load balancer up. So for now, we're going to create essentially a security group that allows no inbound traffic. Let's see if this works. So we've got our launch template ready to go for EC2. So we can go and do the same thing here and say deploy EC2. And we'll say copy this. And just like we did before, I'm going to steal all of this so I don't have to type it. And we're going to call this EC2 deploy. And we're going to say, now for the time being, oh, we had a couple things we needed to set there, didn't we? We'll come back to that. And we'll do the same thing. We'll pull this down onto a new line. I'm going to leave this, but I'm going to tag a to-do on it because I think we're going to have to make some changes there. The rest of this can stay the same. Actually, I'm going to do that instead. Okay, so let's go back and have a look because I'm pretty sure, yeah, we need our instance profile, we need our image ID. So actually, we're kind of stuck here. We can't deploy this until we get that image done. So let's go back and do that. So we're here. We're here. And we'll just run an update on this, get everything patched. And for the time being, all I'm going to do is install the Apache server. That's it. Okay. We'll come back for the Cloudwatch log agent later on. The reason I want to leave that is not because we wouldn't normally put it on here right now, but I want to show you how you might make a change to an AMI and then want to roll it into an auto-scaling group later, how you can do that. So we've got everything patched. And now we should just be able to yum install. I always forget if it's Apache. I'm gonna go with HTTPD. There we go. Which means we should now have a var directory with HTML, nothing in it. So we're gonna create an index file in here. Otherwise, this is gonna throw an error at us when we test it. So we'll just go like, I think it's like okay. Whoops. So there's our super fancy, is this real life? Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do sudo. Hold on. Okay, there's our fancy index page. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that Apache is running. So we can do check config. Oh, I forget what this is. Hang on a second. Amazon has these commands, well documented. Did this. We don't have to worry about any of that. We're not worrying about PHP or anything. This is what I wanted right here. So, whoops. So if we do this, HTTP is running. And now we want to make sure that when we reboot this machine, it's also running. Okay. So at this point, we have everything set up. Let's actually close some of these down. Don't need that anymore. We'll leave that. I find this documentation. Use the unified Cloudwatch log agent. We want to use the unified Cloudwatch log agent. Go here. We have to click 3 times to get to the actual doc. We might as well install this. We can always find a different example to do. And you can see that this is easy to install. So I keep doing that. We're going to go like that. And it's installed. We're not going to configure it at this point. I'll show you later how we can configure this. Okay, so we've got the Cloudwatch agent installed. We've got Apache running. And again, I can't remember if it's HD. There it is. Okay, so it's all good. So what we want to do now is we want to actually get out of this machine. And we're going to now create an Amazon machine image from this. So we're going to go... you don't have to do it this way, but I like to do it this way. Old habits. So we're going to stop the machine. Okay. And then we will create the AMI from it. And once we have that AMI created, then we can go back into the instance, not the instance profile, the launch template, and get that created as well. So let's give this a second. I think in truth, when we create, or if you went out over here and said action, you'll see it here when it's not stopping. I think if we did action create image, it would stop it, create the image, and start it again. But this machine never really needs to come back to life after this. So I'll just stop it because we can. Kevin, I stayed up after streaming last night and was reading more about Create in Minecraft, and I could not find any way to generate more speed. I think we just need bigger machines. So we're going to say action in here, image, create an image, and we're going to just call this demo Apache. Okay, we'll leave all of this as the defaults, and we'll say create. And this should happen pretty quickly. If we go over to AMIs, right, it's only got 8 gigs of space, so it should come to life pretty quickly. Do I have an AMI? Yeah, I do. Okay. So what we can do is we are going to go back here and we're going to add something we haven't seen before. We're going to add mappings. Okay. So mappings allow us to create. You came up empty as well, Kevin? Yeah. Yeah. I think it has to do with, you know how we had the big gears and small gears? I think we just needed, there's a way to kind of put those gears in a combination to speed it up. We probably looked right at it and didn't see it. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to create a map. And what a map does is it's a way to create an association. So a key to a value. In this case, the key is going to be the region where we're deploying this, and the value is going to be that AMI. So I'm just going to put this as a placeholder because that's the AMI I want. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say AWS CloudFormation mappings, because I always forget what this looks like. Okay, so here we go. Key, This is our logical name. This is the key, and that's the name. So you can see an example here. So what we've got is we're going to call it region map as well. Logically, that makes a lot of sense. And we're going to say in CA Central 1, if you're deploying a web server, use that AMI. Okay. And what you could do here is you could have something like this, and you could put in your other AMIs. For now, since we're only going to really deploy this in one region, we're going to leave it like that. Okay. This is a really good way to make a template that's flexible that you can run across multiple regions. So if I was going to run this in, let's say, CA Central 1, US East 1, and US East 2, then I could have those AMIs ready to go in each of those 3 regions. And then I'll show you how you refer to it down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an intrinsic function called findInMap, which I thought they had a reference to here. Here we go. Okay. So findInMap. So we're going to say findInMap. Our map name, I already forget, region map. Our top key is the region, so we're going to use an intrinsic function for this. So I'm going to say sub AWS region. So that should substitute in our case, CA Central 1. And then our other key is just web. So we'll just put web in here. Okay. So that should look up the map, find the region where we're deploying it, and then find the map value, and away we go. We should be good. Okay. Now this is the one that I cannot remember because we have to jam a couple things together. What I want to do here is I want to refer to the value that we outputted here. But now that I think about this, I think we're going to have to go back and change this. So I'll show you why. So IAM instance profile as part of a launch template. So let's go back to the documentation. Specifies, they want the ARN and no. Well, I guess we have to provide at least one. So I would say we'll go with the, if you're creating the launch template for use, you can specify either the name or the ARN, but not both. Okay, well, I think we've got the name already. So we could go here and say name. This is where we need that find. So give me a second again. This isn't a template, and I can't share the template. So I'm going to just go back to that screen for a second. Give me a minute. I always forget about this one. Just trying to find a quick example. Well, I thought I had one where to go. Yeah, this is what I want. I need like a chatting only screen where you just get my mugshot. That would be better than that screen, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to do this. So we're going to import a value from that stack. And we know we called the stack up here IAM stack. So we can put that in there. And then we need the output value that we called this, which is just instance profile. And we can dump that here. Okay. So essentially what we're doing here is we're taking the export value from that other template and we're using it as an import value here. And we're good. Okay. So we've got rid of all of our to-do items. No, we didn't. Image ID, which we actually did with a map instead. So that's no longer required. And now we have our parameter overrides, which we need IAM stack equals IAM stack. And we'll put that as a variable up here called IAM stack. And I think we just called it IAM environment. And I think we can just go like this. Okay. So passing that stack name, and I think the rest of it is all set. We've got default values for everything. So let's give it a whirl. Pull that back up here. Not an immediate failure. That's a good sign. Probably by the time it loads here, it'll fail. Let's see how our AMI is doing. Okay, so our AMI is available. So we're good to go there. There's the error. What did I do? Must not depend on any resources, imported values, or I think I've done this before. Did I maybe name that wrong? No, IAM stack. Maybe I can't remember if this needs a default value there, or maybe I spelt something. Oh, look, I did it wrong down here. So this we still don't need because we're passing that in. So let's try that again. I see a few more people have joined the chat, so welcome. We're working on some CloudFormation templates here to stand up a really simple web-based workload. Say hi in the chat if you feel up to it. You want to introduce yourself. There's just a few of us hanging out here, so you're more than welcome to say hello. Did that actually fail again? I was feeling confident that, yeah, it did. Okay, let's see what we got. Requires 3 parameters: the map name, the map key, and the attribute. Region map. That looks like it has 3 attributes. Is it complaining about the map itself? No, it's complaining about the find and map, the map name, the map key, and the attribute. Region map, region map. We're substituting in the region, and then the value. Let's go back here. Find and map, region. Oh, maybe it's not a sub. Maybe I need to go in here and go ref. Let's try that, just because that's what they're using in that example. Oh, you know what? Sorry. Yeah, I was going too fast. It's actually supposed to be like this. I have the syntax for a substitute command, not the reference. Let's try that again. Third time's going to be the charm. I can feel it. There we go. So now we just have to sit in here and wait for, should pop up EC2 development. I could probably tighten some of these up, do a couple of them in parallel. There we go. So nothing too fancy, right? Our basic security group, which has nothing in it at this point, and then our launch template. I'm always happy when it doesn't fail the moment you hit that first refresh. Oh, made it to the second one. Is not valid. The expected format. Oh, so we've got the wrong reference in here. So let's go back and have a look. Launch template. Go to launch data. What did it ask for here? You cannot specify both a security group ID and a security group name in the same request. And then if we go down and look at the security group, what's the return value for this? We did a ref, which passes the logical ID. For security groups that are created without specifying classic or default, ref returns the resource name. Oh, this is what we need here. We need the group ID. Okay, so if we go back here, we basically have to change this to get attribute security group 0 group ID, because that'll return the SG. Yeah, it's not really too bad. I don't know if that's right. Get attribute group ID. Well, let's try it and see. It's really not too bad. There's a fair amount of iteration when you're building these out, like the first time doing what we're doing right here. But once you get it built, it's painless. Did I click delete? I don't think I did I? There we go. Yeah, you know what? CloudFormation is, the documentation for it, Kevin, is really good. So it's just a matter of, I'm getting pretty good at knowing where to look in the documentation because I spend so much time trying to figure these things out. I'm still not convinced that's right because it doesn't look right to me. I don't recall doing it this way in the past, but let's try it and see. There's only one way to know for sure. Couldn't take much more of that song. While we're waiting for this, let's see if we can tighten this up a little bit. So I'm gonna actually go like this. Deploy stage 1. And we're gonna say stage 1. Is that what I did? Yeah. And we're gonna say stage 1. The names aren't very logical, but they'll do for now. So that goes away. These two go away. And then we can do EC2. So we can do some of those in parallel. Not that it's a big pipeline to deploy. Let's see if I did it right this time. There we go. All right, so let's see what we've got now. If we go over to the EC2 console, let's close this old one. And we go down to launch template. There's our launch template that we just created. We're referring to the image ID that we mentioned before, or sorry, the AMI that we mentioned before. There's the security group. There's the instance type. No additional volumes. We're going to use what comes with the Amazon machine image. Anyone in chat have experience with AWS CloudFormation? I know one person that's in here does, yeah. Our tags, interfaces, and any sort of advanced details. There's the instance profile that we mentioned before. We've got detailed Cloudwatch monitoring on. We've got EBS optimization. Yeah, Travers, Kevin, so you know Travers works with me. So much like myself, he spends most of his day writing CloudFormation templates or sitting watching a CloudFormation template wait to fail. Okay, so there we go. We've got our launch template ready to go. And if we look at the security group, here's the security group that we created. No inbound rules and the one outbound rule. Yeah, sitting around writing templates or waiting for them to fail. Here's a problem though. I'm noticing it as I'm looking right here. We didn't assign this to the right VPC. So we got to fix that. Because when we try to associate this later on, it's going to throw an error at us. It's not going to work. So we got to fix that. That's an easy fix. We need to go back over here. And I forgot VPC ID, which means we need to go up here and say VPC stack. And we'll handle this the same way that we did the IAM stack. Okay. And if we go look at the VPC, we should have an output value here at the end, I'm hoping. We don't. What did we call it at the top? Was it just VPC 0? Yeah, okay. So we're going to say VPC 0, the value, I want to say it's just a ref again. And then we're going to say export name is ref VPC 0. We're going to need, oh no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. And we're going to call this VPC ID. Okay. We are going to have to add some more in here now that I'm looking at this. We're going to have to add some more for the auto scaling group. For now, we'll just do this one. Hey, Shari. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you like it. Welcome to the chat. Okay, so this is actually a good test because we got to go back here and we got to pull this. And we can use the same syntax up here. We want to make this VPC stack, and we just call this VPC ID, right? And now we got to go here. And we want to pass this in. And we need another parameter override here. And this will actually let us test if I did when I squashed those stages together, if I did that right, because I wouldn't be shocked if this is not exactly the way I envision it, but let's try it. So what did we do? We squashed the pipeline, added missing VPC reference in SG, and added outputs to VPC. And this will actually be a good demonstration of why we should be using change sets. Okay, we'll see here if, well, first we got to get the pipeline to work. That's step one. And assuming the pipeline works, we will see a change set get generated here. And we're going to have to run, we're going to run a change set on the VPC first, because we would need to make sure that that new output is there. And then we can run the change set on the EC2 template at the end. So if we go back here, here's our change set. And it won't actually show any changes, which is normal because all we're doing is we're actually just adding a new output. So it doesn't show any actual changes to existing resources in a change set. So we're just going to execute that. And I'll show you that this works here in a second because we'll see a new output. Okay, so if we go here, there's that VPC 0. That's the ID. And there's the export name. So that's good. Now, if we go here, this one should look a little different. And you'll see here that it says, we're going to modify the launch template. Its replacement is conditional. Based on us doing this in the past, I know it's not going to replace the launch template, but it is going to replace the security group. And you can see right here, replacement is true. Okay. So this is why when Travers and I are doing this type of stuff, we're always using change sets, because you can imagine, you know, in our account or in a customer's account, you would obviously want to make sure that you understand what that change, what the modification to the CloudFormation template would actually do. So a change set is kind of like a dry run. So it gives us the opportunity to kind of understand what's happening and what's the outcome if we accept this change set. In our case, I'm going to say go for it. And what we should see happen here is the original security group will get deleted and a new security group will get created. There we go, right? Request updates requires a creation of a new physical resource, hence creating a new one. And that's a pretty easy change. And there's the original security group gone. So now if we go back here and we refresh this, really what I'm looking for is that right there to change. Right? So now it's in the right VPC. So that's good. We're good. Okay. So we've got our AMI, we've got our launch template, we've got our security group ready to go. How long we're only an hour in. Kevin, if I can commit 3 hours to playing Minecraft, I think we can do a little more here and see if we can get this auto scaling group as well up and running. Okay, so let's see what we've got to do for that. So what we're going to do is go back up here. And at this point, we're going to create our auto scaling group. And most of this is relatively basic stuff. Okay? I think what we'll do for now is we'll ignore the fact that we need a load balancer, and we'll see how long it takes us to get this auto scaling group running. And if we can get through this pretty quick, then we'll put the load balancer in front of it as well, and then we can see the machine actually working. Okay. Oh, I gotta change this one. We're on a bad run of music here. Is the music level okay? Like you can hear my voice over the music level? I didn't actually think of that. I would assume at some you guys would have told me that it was crappy earlier on. All right, so security group, launch template, and what we need now is our auto scaling group. I don't know if that's what it's called. Auto scaling group. All right. So let's see what we got to do here. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just scroll down here. We're not going to name it. We'll let CloudFormation do that. A list of the availability zones where you want to install. You must specify if you're. I think we need this, but to be honest, I'm going to wait until we're finished the rest. So let's just put a placeholder here. I can't remember if we need that one or not. So we'll just do this for now. Capacity indicates whether capacity rebalancing enabled. We're not going to worry about capacity. We're not going to worry about cooldown. We are going to say desired capacity. Okay. We'll come back to what that means in a second, and we'll just say ref desired capacity. And we'll just add it to the end here to keep them all together. So string, and its default value is 2. So what this means is audio is pretty good. Okay, Kevin, good, thanks. Actually, let's wait and talk about desired capacity here when we get all these components together. I think it'll make more sense. Our health check grace period, the amount of times. Yeah, we'll leave that as the default. Okay, we want to leave it at 0. Our health check type, we'll leave it as EC2 for now because we don't have the load balancer anyways, so we'll just leave it as EC2 health. Base the launch configuration on, we don't need that. We don't need the launch configuration because we're using a launch template, and here's what we need. So launch template. And I want to say, oh, there's something we got to do here. I think it's probably a name. Yeah, so we go here. Launch template ID. And what do they want? Okay, so we can do either or. So let's go back and look at the launch template for a second and see what its return value is. So if we do a ref, we just get the logical ID, or logical ID. So that's fine. We'll just do a ref. That's easy. Okay, so we're right here. So we want launch template ID, and we're going to say ref LT0, and this gets us back to another depends on. I know we're deploying this in bits and pieces, so it really doesn't matter, but I think you should do this as you're building these out, because if I delete this later, which I'm going to do, and then we come back and keep working on this, I'm going to deploy it all in one shot, and I want to make sure certain resources are there first. Okay, so we're going to do that. Now, here's another really important part is the version. So a launch template, there's 2 ways to build your autoscaling groups. You can use a launch config and you can use a launch template. A launch config is an immutable resource, meaning that once you create it, you can't change it. You have to create a new, you basically copy that launch config, create a new one, and then update your autoscaling group to point to it. A launch template has versions. So we want to, basically what we're doing here is we're going to tell the autoscaling group which version of the launch template to use. Okay. And this is a really good update to this in the fact that it used to be that you had to put in a version number here. Now you can use a couple options. So you can see here, you can apply the latest version number or the default version number using the get attribute function. So what we're going to do is we're going to say get attribute LT0 dot, and we got to go back and find that output value again. So you can see default version number or latest. We're going to use this. So whatever we've set the default version of the launch template to be is what we're going to use in the autoscaling group. That's a really handy little feature that's here now. So that gets us down to lifecycle hooks. We don't have lifecycle hooks in this case, but just so you know, autoscaling supports 2 lifecycle hooks. When you're scaling out, adding resources, before you add that instance to the autoscaling group, you could execute an event, basically a lifecycle hook here, run a script before that machine comes to life. Maybe you want to install something on it, or sorry, not before it comes to life, but before it gets added to the autoscaling group. And on the other side, when we're scaling in or terminating EC2 instances, you could have a hook that runs a script again before that machine is terminated. So maybe you want to copy logs off of it or something like that. We're not going to do that. We're going to come back and we're going to look at the load balancer name later on. Okay. This is really cool. Another, I think, relatively new feature. You can now specify the amount of time that you want an instance to be alive for, and it will automatically terminate it and replace it. It's pretty neat. Okay. So we do need max size. And we'll say ref max size, and we'll add that reference up here as well. And like I said, we'll come back and talk about these attributes here in a second once we get them all laid out. Enables the collection. Yeah, we want collection of metrics for the autoscaling group. And this is a list of metrics collection. So granularity, I'm never going to spell that right. So I'm going to do this. I guess I could ask the Echo how to do that for me as well. Kevin knows what I'm talking about. And then the metrics that we want. So let's say metrics, and this is also a list, I think. Yeah, it's a list of a string. So we'll just grab a couple just to demonstrate this. Group max, group min. I don't know. Does it really matter? Let's do those two. So we've got it defined. And then finally min size. So now that we've got all of these values set, let's explain what they are. They're probably pretty self-explanatory. Oops, you see what I'm doing here? I'm putting this in parameters. That's got to go down here. And then we want min size. That was going to get ugly. Okay. And we can do this and say min size. Let me just make sure I typed that right. Yeah, okay. So what do we have? We have an autoscaling group with a min size of 2, max size of 2, and a desired capacity of 2. So min and max are pretty self-explanatory, right? What's the minimum number of machines you want in this autoscaling group? What's the maximum number of machines you want in this autoscaling group? And we're actually going to change this. We're going to say the max size is 10. Okay, so we can go from as few as 2 machines up to a maximum of 10 machines. Desired capacity is, the way that I think about it is, desired capacity is the way that we tell the autoscaling group where we want it to start. We want to start with 2 machines. And we'll put some sort of scaling policy on this at some point. And then what would happen is that scaling policy will actually be, for lack of better words, the brains, right? When do I need to scale out or add instances? When do I need to scale in, remove instances? And what's going to happen is the scaling policy would adjust the desired capacity between the min and the max value. So in our case, 2 and 10. So I'll show you this. We'll do it manually when we get this to come to life. But I don't know if you actually need to provide this, but I normally do, okay, as a starting point. So that's kind of what min, max, and desired is for. Mixed instances policy, we're not going to worry about that. We're not going to turn on protecting instances from scale in. Now, if we were doing this, we would want notifications. Okay, you want to make sure that you understand when things are being added and when things are being removed. We're not going to do that today because we're going to do this all manually. Placement group, we don't care about. The service link role. We may actually need this, but I'm going to leave it out, even though I'm 95% sure that we need it, because it's going to give us an opportunity to show you something here that's important. Okay, so we'll leave it off for now. Tags we want, and we'll just use the same set of tags that we always use. And we are going to make a minor change to this. We're going to add another tag, and we're going to call this name. And its value is going to be sub. Oh man, AWS stack name. Okay, just so we see it here. And that's not right. It's got to be that. Now this is slightly different. So let's find maybe some. I wanted to show you this. So we have to determine whether or not we want to propagate these at launch. So I'm just going to take this and we're going to go in here and we're going to say, that's a typo. true. And I think I'm going to propagate all these, but to be honest, I can't remember if the launch template will do that for us or not. We're going to put it here for now and just see what happens. Okay. And then looking at this last right here, VPC zone identifier. Let's just read this. A list of subnet IDs for the virtual private cloud where instances in the autoscaling group can be created. If you specify zone identifier with availability zones, the subnets that you specify in this property must reside in those availability zones. Yeah, so we want this because we want to specify the subnets where we want these instances to go. Okay. And I always like to leave tags as the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically, I know what I'm going to call these. Actually, no, I'm not going to do it this way. So this can come out. I'm going to use this again. Okay, and we're going to say VPC stack. We're going to say private subnet 0 and private subnet 1. Okay, so this is the other export value that we have to grab from here. So we're going to set those up as well. So we'll say private subnet 0 has a value of, I probably called it private subnet up here. Yeah, right there. Okay, and then it has an export, and we'll say sub. All right. So that is pretty good. I think we're good. I'm 95% sure when we deploy this, it's going to fail, but let's try it anyways. Okay. We want to go here. So I spelt that wrong, which at this point shouldn't come as a surprise. So let's go back here and what did I do wrong? Auto scaling. I'm just going to do this because, oh, I forgot a colon. Try again. No, wrong place. Want to go here first. All right, so we made it through the validation. So I think if we've got everything right here, what we're going to see is we're going to see the auto-scaling group come to life. And then we're going to see it try to do what we asked it to do, set up a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 10, right? And we have the desired capacity of 2. But I think the actual scaling process will fail. And I'll tell you why, if I'm correct here, when we see this happen. Okay, so remember we've got to run this first. So let's go over here and run the update on the VPC template. And that's just going to add those two outputs for the two subnets, right? So that's easy. This one is, in theory, easy. We're just adding this auto-scaling group to the existing template. There we go. The security group does not exist. Actually, not what I expected to see. The security group SG 968. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, I must have referred to something. So I want it to refer to this, 7609. Okay, that's a confusing one. Let's go back and have a look at the error. SG0, the security group SG does not exist. Okay. Alexa, turn on the office.
Okay.
Could that be something just wrong in the launch template? 968. So what do we... I wonder if this has something to do with the fact that, remember we had to change the security group. It's like it didn't. Okay, I think what it we're gonna go like this. I think what it was because when we created the first run through of this, remember I had the security group and I assigned it to the wrong VPC, and then we changed it. So we've got a new security group ID. But the launch template didn't get updated. And I'm not sure quite. Oh, you know what? It's probably too late to look now. It's probably already gone. Yeah, it's gone. I wonder if it was a different version. That's probably what it was. I was just jumping too quickly to a conclusion here that probably wasn't right. So anyways, we'll redeploy it and see what happens. Okay, so let's just go back here and rerun this last stage. I bet you it was a different version. And because I had set default version, it was trying to use the old version 1 of the template, and that referred to a security group that no longer existed. I bet you that's what it was. Now let's go over here. And we might actually see, there we go. So these are the new instances, and see what's happened? They're terminated. Okay. if we go and we look at the auto-scaling group, we'll probably see a rather challenging error. Became unhealthy while waiting, for instance, internal error, client error, and launch. So this is what I was actually expecting. And the reason is that auto-scaling, when you have encrypted EBS volumes, needs to have the ability to use KMS. So we actually have to make another change here. So I'm going to actually delete this template. Otherwise, what will happen is it'll launch machine, they'll terminate, they'll launch machine, they'll terminate. So there's no sense in letting it do that. So we'll disable the termination protection and we will delete this stack. Okay. So let's see if we can find this documentation link for this. Let's close a couple of these down. When we ran into this the first time, you can see I'm already clicked on this. It took us a little while because that error message I don't find very intuitive. I don't know exactly what the heck it means. So what we need to do here is we need to add these statements to the key that we created. We essentially need to allow the service role, AWS service role for auto-scaling, we need to add it to the key policy. So we can actually just take essentially this. Okay. Let's see here. Add the two statements. So both of these statements. So we're going to take this and we're going to say JSON to YAML. And we'll take this. And what we need to do is we need to go over to this key policy. And you can see I've got a bunch of things commented out already. So we'll just, oh, look at that. We're going to change this a little bit. We're going to take off this suffix. And we'll just assign it directly to the role. And I think that will solve our problem. Okay. We've got our account ID in here and then the path. What do we want to call this? Add ASG to KMS key policy. That'll take us back over here. This keeps getting pushed out of the way, so we want to go back there. All right, there's our KMS. Okay, so we're just basically going to update our key and add those additional permissions for the auto-scaling service. This should be pretty quick as long as there wasn't a typo in there in that statement that I uncommented. That's not what I wanted. And we called it demo, I think, right? There we go. Okay, so we can actually go and we can look at this in IAM just to make sure it's there, which is a service link role for it. So there's the service link role. Okay, so auto scaling can assume this, and then it has this, but it also has access to that key now. So I think that's, if I recall from when we troubleshooted this before, that's really all we need, and then it should work. Key policy always takes a while. Especially when you're waiting for it. You're kind of doing a demo like this. It always feels way longer. Probably doesn't help that I'm just sitting madly mashing the refresh key. There we go. All right. So we should, because the rest of the pipeline ran, here's our template. Let's execute this and see if that policy changed it. I think it should. I think it should fix it. We'll know pretty quick because those machines will come to life and they will immediately get crushed if we don't have it right. We've got one machine running. There we go. They're running. You can see if we go back here, look at this. Go back to the dashboard. Look at all the machines that it started and then stopped for us in that short little period of time. And I would suspect that this is probably going to finish pretty quickly. So now we've got 2 instances running. So we actually go up here and we can just put it this. I like this new filter that you can get right here. Just show us the running instances. So now we've got, in theory, we've got those 2 EC2 instances up and running. And as long as, we'll give them a minute to initialize, what we should be able to do is we can't hit the website on them yet because there's no load balancer in front of it. But we've got now access to them through SSM. So we should be able to see them. Let's try to connect anyways, even though it says initializing. Let's see what it does. Sometimes they're alive. There we go. And we've got our web server running. So, Kevin, we're still under 2 hours. So I think we should keep pushing here and see if we can get the load balancer in front of this thing. And then we would have the ability to actually hit our little extremely impressive website. Okay, so let's push on. Cancel that, and if I get rid of or if I go back to where I have the filter, I'm not sure why the filter is saying there's only 1, but we've got these 2 machines running. So I think we're good. Okay. So what we need now is a load balancer. And the load balancer is essentially going to be the entry point, right? So what's going to happen is if you try to hit this website from the outside world, you hit the actual load balancer, and then the load balancer does what any load balancer does. It distributes traffic evenly across the hosts that are behind it. That's all it is, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to do what they call a version 2 load balancer, which is an application or an ALB load balancer. And these are, again, relatively easy to set up. We're going to create another template for this, and we're just going to call it ALB, and we'll do the same thing. I'm going to make an assumption that we're going to need some parameters, and we'll just go like this. And I'm not going to try to type that because I definitely will not do it correctly. Actually, yeah, let's leave it separate for now, just to demonstrate kind of, yeah, later, Travers. Thanks for hanging out for a while, man. I appreciate it. You can't specify dual stack, allowed values, IP4. We're not going to worry about IP address type. We'll let it do its thing. Load balancer attributes. Let's see what we can set. Do we care? I think what we're going to do is we are going to leave this. Actually, no, we want to make sure that we have cross-zone load balancing enabled. okay, so that we're distributing traffic. So how does this work? Load balancer attributes. And then I think it was just a key value pair, right? So key is this. And then value is true. Now there's some other things in here like logging and all that, but I think for today, if we can get this up and running, then we can come back and kind of turn those logs on later. So we'll just leave it at that for the time being. Again, we're not going to name anything. We'll let CloudFormation do that for us. We do need to define a scheme. There's two options. There's an internet or an internal. So we want an internet-facing load balancer, right? This is going to be accessible from the public. So we'll say internet-facing, I think is what it's called. Yeah, internet-facing. We do need to give it some security groups. So we're going to keep the security groups in here just to make them easy to find later on. Okay, and I'm going to actually just steal from here because it's going to essentially look exactly the same. Okay. We are, though, going to actually give this some rules. So I need to add, where is that? EC2, right? And it's a security group. And we need security group ingress. So we'll put that right here, security group ingress. And yeah, we'll, you know what, we'll do this, web-based ALB security group. And what do we need? We need the CIDR, the CIDR range. So in this case, we want to allow traffic from anywhere, right? Because this is the public-facing load balancer. We'll say from port 80 to port 80. IP protocol, we need to provide that, which is TCP. And then we don't need any of these. We've got the 2-port already. We will add 443 because obviously we would want a secure website in real life. But I think for the time being, we'll leave it like this. Okay. Maybe in the next session, we can add that additional rule. Okay, so that's the security group. So we want to go in here and we want to say depends on again. And let's go back to our load balancer here. And this is a list of a string. So we're going to go like this and say ref sg0. Okay, the IDs of the public subnets. Subnet mappings. Let's use subnet mappings. I think this is the newer way to do this. So we're going to say subnet mappings. And is it a list again? A list of. So we're going to do the same thing that we did in EC2. We might need that. Remember how we did the import here for the auto scaling? We're going to do exactly this. We're going to change it slightly because we want the the load balancer to exist in the public subnets. Okay. Which means we have to go back here and we're just going to copy all of this. And we'll just, try that again. No, that's not what I want. I wanted that. So we'll call this public subnet 0. Oops. Okay, so now we can refer to those. So we're going to run this one again to get those updated values so that we can use it here. Okay, subnet mappings, subnets we don't need, tags, which we'll continue to use the same set that we're always using. Okay, and then you can define a type, but the default value is application, and that's what we want. So we'll just leave it like that. Now we need a couple parameters. So the first thing is VPC stack. Okay. And then, what was the other thing? I think that was it. Yeah, because we need these. Oh, we need our regular values for owner and all that. So we can grab that out of here. And we'll dump that here. Okay. And I think that's it. So let's add that to here. Okay. Now I'm going to deploy the load balancer. I know we've already put the auto scaling group there, but I wanted to get that working tonight. I wasn't sure if we'd actually make it this far. So I want the VPC has to be there, and then we can put the load balancer. So we can find stage 2, flow logs. We'll just grab this, and we can dump that here. Okay. Whoops. So we're going to call this ALB. We don't need any of this because we're doing this a little differently now. So we need VPC stack is VPC environment. And then down here, VPC stack equals VPC stack. This needs to be ALB. And just like we did before, just to keep this a little easier to read, we'll do that. Okay, we got this trailing guy here. So I think in theory we can try this again. So let's deploy all of this. Oops, outputs to VPC. See if these guys are okay. So they're both up and running now. That's good. Have I made it through a validate yet? I don't think I have. Oh, this, okay, so I've got a spacing error, line 22. Let's close a few of these down. Getting too many of these open now. Oh, see what I've got? That's got to be back at space. Okay, so I'm there. I'm good there. Just a bad tab. All right, so we made it this time. We have to run our change set here, and then we'll see a new resource for the ALB. Okay, so we might as well go over here, find VPC, and we should probably see a change set. And we can execute that. That's an easy one. Okay, that's done. ALB's in progress, so we can probably see that as well. Here we go. Here's our change set. Okay. And let's execute this. Must be a list of objects. So I didn't read the documentation, which doesn't surprise me. So let's go back and have a look. Oh, subnet mapping. List. Oh, look, it's got its own way to do it. Okay, so let's go and have a look here. Ugh. Okay, we don't need that. Network load balancer. Don't need that. Don't need that. We literally just need to put a dash. So hang on a second here. I'm getting, oh, you know what this is? Hold on. That's my nighttime screen dampener. So let's just turn that off. There we go. It's going to get annoying. I'm not quite sure I understand the syntax for this. Dash. So I think all they want is subnet ID in front of it. Alexa, turn on the office.
Okay.
So we need to say subnet ID. Okay. Do they give you an example down here of what this looks like? They don't. Okay, well let's try that and see what it does. So we need to go and we need to delete this stack. That's the easy part. And then we need to push this. All right. Not quite yet. There it is. So again, looks like the exact same. Now, as we're waiting for this to probably fail again, you'll notice in the demos that we've been doing, we've been including the security group with the various resources, right? So we've got a security group in the EC2 template. We've got a security group in the ALB template. You don't have to do it like that. We kind of switch back and forth. Sometimes we create a security group template that has all the security groups in it, and then we just refer to those security groups. But we're also doing it like this, where we're putting security groups in the templates for specific things, right? It sort of depends on how the client feels about the deployment process, and it also might have something to do with their compliance requirements, where they want only a select group of people to be able to see those security group templates or manage those templates. For the purposes of demos and stuff, it's really easy to do it like this. So you might have to kind of play around a little and see what works best. So here we go. Let's refresh this and see what happens. No immediate failure on the load balancer, which means we probably have that load balancer getting deployed here. So there it is. We haven't actually done a lot with this load balancer yet. There's a bunch of other things that we have to create. So we have to create a listener. Basically, what is it actually listening on for traffic? We also need a target group defined for this that would then point to those EC2 instances that we're going to define a little later on. Okay. So assuming that this finishes successfully, it's going to take a little bit of time. Why don't we have a look at the next part, which is a listener. We need this right here. Okay. So we're going to go back here and we're going to say listener 0. And I'm not going to try to type this. We're going to copy and paste because it's a long one. And we're going to say, first we're going to put this in here because I know we're going to need this. So we'll say ALB 0. Okay. So ALPN policy, TLS listener. We don't have to worry about that. When we do our next session, I'll show you how to add a cert to this. So we'll use SSL certs that come from Amazon and assign that. But for now, we'll leave it where it is. We will have to create a default rule. We're going to do our properties, and we'll say default. Was it rule or default actions? And is it a list of action? So I'm just going to do this. We'll come back to that. Okay. We need the ARN of the load balancer that we want to associate this to. So load balancer ARN. And we need to understand what the output from the load balancer is. So right here, and we can go to return values. So if we just use the ref, it returns the Amazon resource name of that load balancer. So that's an easy one. So we can just say ref ALB 0. Okay. Where's my listener? I lost my listener. Oh, up here. We need a port. I mentioned already that we're just going to use port 80 for now. We'll add an additional listener when we put the cert in later on. We won't worry about the SSL policy, so we're good at this point. We've got our listener. Okay. So let's make sure that that works. We're going to deploy this in little chunk. Oh, look at that. What happened? Maybe we don't need that because it's a application load balancer. Maybe that's something for the legacy. Oh, sorry, folks. Woo. All right. All right. So let's fix this. This is okay because we're going to have to redeploy this anyways. So let's delete that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take off these load balancer attributes for the time being. Okay. I'll double check that. Maybe we'll add that back later because I want to show you how to do logging on the load balancer and everything. But that'll be an attribute we can add later on. Okay, so let's test this again. Push this update. Oh, I left it to do somewhere, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, so we need the default action. So let's go have a look at that. So default action, here we go. We're not going to do any Cognito configurations. We're not going to do any OpenID. We're not going to provide a fixed response config. What is information for creating an action that returns a custom HTTP response? Nope. I think all we need is a forward config. Order, redirect, target group ARN. Yeah, okay, so this is where we might have to create something else first. So let's have a look at the target group. So there's the load balancer has a listener. So what ports are we going to listen on? And then we have a target group for an application and network load balancer. And this is essentially, if we receive traffic, if it matches a rule, send it to this target group. So we're just going to set up a default target group with a default action. So we need that target group first because I actually want to send it here. Okay, so let's find that. This is what we need to do that. And I'm going to cut and paste this. And we'll go here and we'll just call this, we'll just call it target 0. And this also depends on Actually, it looks like it doesn't depend on anything. So let's say properties, and let's go through this list. So health check enabled. Health checks are disabled by default. We're going to leave it off for the time being until we test everything. So we'll leave that there. Wait, no, hold on. Oh, I'm misreading this. I should actually read the whole sentence. If the target type is Lambda, health checks are disabled by default. If the target type is instance or IP, health checks are always enabled and cannot be disabled. So we don't need to provide that. We do need to provide this though. So health check interval in seconds, we'll say 10 seconds. Well, no, let's make it 30. Nah, let's make it 10. I'm indecisive. Okay, what's the health check path? In this case, we are going to, the destination for the health checks on the targets, we're just going to say / health check port. The default is traffic port. I'm going to specify this just if we ever found ourselves in a situation where we didn't want it to be port 80. Our protocol is going to be HTTP. Health check timeout in seconds. Let's say, I don't know, 5 seconds. So health check interval in seconds, like basically what that means, Kevin, is how often are we going to check? So in this case, we're saying check every 10 seconds to see if in this case, the website is responding versus checking every 30 seconds. So it's really up to you to kind of decide what you want here. Okay. And then we're saying when you check it, you should hear back in less than 5 seconds. Okay. And now what we're saying is how many times do you need to get a healthy check back to consider the target healthy? So we'll say 3. Okay, so we want 3 checks to come back healthy. So that means it'll take 30 seconds for those machines to come to life as being healthy. In this case, the matcher, we want a 200 error code to come back from the website. We're not going to name this. The port on which the targets receive the traffic is also 80. Some of these feel like we've done these already. Protocol is also 80. Okay, so tags we'll come back to. Target group attributes, no big deal there. We're not going to put targets because we're going to set this actually up in the auto scaling group. Okay, so we don't need that right now. We're not going to set our target type. We do need this. So we need 3 to be healthy. Let's say 5 to be unhealthy. Let's just make sure the number, the default is 2. The target group, well, let's make it 2 then. And then we need our VPC ID. And I'm not sure if we have this already. We do. So we can use this same value right here. All right. So that's the target group. So this also then depends on target 0. If we go back to our listener. So now we can figure out our default actions. We don't want a listener rule. We just want the listener. And this is what we need. And we decided already we need, well, we could do order first. This is our first rule, right? First and only rule. Information for creating action that distributes traffic or distributes consequent entire. Okay, so let's have a look at what that looks like. Let's look at a forward config. Hey, is that something that's required? Let's scroll down and have a look again. It's not required. I'm going to leave it off for now. Let's just see what this does. I think I want the order, right? So I want to make sure that we're only going to have a single rule for now, but let's just do this because later we're going to add some others. Redirect config, we're not going to do that because our actual type definition is going to be forward. So we're going to say type is forward and target group ARN is, we got to figure out what the return is for that target group again. So just a ref again. So we can say ref target 0. I think that's all we need. I can't remember this template for some reason in my head very well. So let's try it. What's the worst that can happen, right? All right. Must be an object. Read the documentation, I think, is what we're learning here. So what was that again? Target group. That's a listener rule, which we don't need. So let's collapse that right here. Matcher. Oh, really? Okay. HTTP code is 200. Is it a dash or is it just an object? It's just that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's like a big puzzle. I think that's kind of one of the reasons that I got interested in this in the first place, is that you can just kind of fit all these, it's like puzzle pieces, right? You just kind of put them all together. All right, so we should see this come up again. There we go. This is probably the hardest template that we're building tonight because there's a lot of different moving parts and stuff. See, protocol value 80 at protocol failed to satisfy. Oh, again, I'm not reading. Starting to get tired, I think. Protocol should be HTTP. place. Let's go over here. There we go. Let's try this again. All right, we made it past the target group. That's always good. Security group's easy. This is where we were misled last time, right? Because it looked like the load balancer was working because we could see it in the console, and then it didn't come to life. If we go over here now, let's see if it's here. There it is. Okay, so the listener hasn't been created yet, but we should actually be able to see our target group. You can see we've got a couple test ones in here, which we could probably just clean out of here right now. I'm looking at the tags because usually if we deploy something through here, you'll see these tags on it. So why don't we just go like this to clean these out of here. No sense in leaving them hanging around. So that's our target group. You know, no targets yet. We'll register those in a minute. Monitoring should be empty. Okay. Any sort of attributes that we've defined. No listener yet. I wonder if we ran into another error. Nothing yet. Okay, there's the ALB done. Oh, did I actually just spell this wrong? Invalid request provided. Validation exception. What the? That I don't know. So we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to look at, I guess the first thing we want to look at here is, did I type the name correctly? So let's just have a look here. That looks all right. Ooh, that's a really interesting error. Invalid request provided. Your connection is TCP. Maybe I've missed a property in here. Let's have a look. So neither of these are required, but maybe this is what the problem is. So do I have, I've got the port as 80. Protocol. Maybe I need the protocol in here. That makes sense, right? Like it wants to know the protocol associated with the port. So let's try this one more time, and then if we can get this to come to life, we're not quite there yet, but I'm pretty much out of gas. So we'll see if we can get this to come to life, and then we might have to finish up the stack probably after Christmas at this point. This will take a minute now because we've actually got some resources here. Alexa, turn on the office lights.
Okay.
I've got some new lights coming, and they won't be here till after Christmas, and I'm really excited about the new lights. I thought this was really cool. I think I was telling you the other day, I thought this was really cool to set it up like this until it continuously shuts off on me, and it's annoying. I need some better logic in my home automation, I think. Whoops. I think I'm going to try to start some unofficial holidays about midday tomorrow. If it works, I'll be very happy. What's the little crown beside your name mean? Oh, Prime Gaming. Oh, cool. Is that how you associate a Prime membership with Twitch? Is that what that is? Yeah, there are multiple types of load balancing. So there's a classic load balancer, which is kind of like a legacy solution at this point. There's an application load balancer, which we're setting up. It's purpose-built for HTTP, HTTPS traffic. There's a network load balancer, which does TCP and I think UDP now as well. And now there's something also called a gateway load balancer, which is relatively new, and I haven't tried it yet, so I can't comment on that. So there's 4 different types of load balancers, one of them being legacy, like the classic. And they're all kind of like now purpose-built. Let's see what this is. Gateway load balancer. Gives you one gateway for distributing traffic across multiple virtual appliances while scaling them up, down, based on demand. Eliminates potential points of failure in your network. So you can grab virtual appliances from third-party vendors in the marketplace, and then you can put a gateway load balancer in front of those virtual appliances. So there you go. Ah, nice. Very cool. I should do that because I have a Prime subscription. So I should give a streamer that I like some support, right? I had heard about that feature with Prime and Twitch, but I hadn't really ever looked at it in any detail to kind of understand what it was. There we go. Okay, so let me show you this, and I think we'll call it a night at this point, and then we can come back after the holidays and finish this up. We made a lot of progress today. So what we've got, here's our load balancer, all of its configuration, right? There's the listener, and the listener will forward to the target group. And then if we look at the target group, maybe. There we go. So there's the health check, meaning this is how it's going to check the targets behind it in order to see if they can respond on port 80, this path, and they return this code. Okay. And you can see at this point we have no targets. Actually, let's do it this way so you can see this work. Okay. We'll actually do this in a script later, but we can register these targets. We'll put this in CloudFormation. And then what should happen is, assuming that those targets are okay, which I think they are because we saw at least the website was up, right? The Apache server. This should take a little bit of time. If we open this up in a new tab, we can go to this DNS name. Oh, wait. This won't work because these are going to fail. And they failed because of our security group. Because remember the security group? Basically, we said don't allow any inbound traffic. So the load balancer can't talk to these services. So let's actually see if we can, let's see if we can get this working. We're so close at this point. Okay. That's not what we wanted. We wanted this. Okay. So here is our launch template and our auto-scaling group. Okay. So what we can do is if we go back here, find this. So see here, there's load balancer names and there's target groups. So let's have a look at this. I always forget which one we want to use. This is for classic load balancers, which we don't want. Okay. So we need to find the target group, which is this. Okay. So we need the ARN of that target group. So if we go back, we need to add an output to that load balancer. I always forget where load balancer is. We can find in the template. Hold on. So in here, we need to add another stack, ALB stack. The type is just going to be string because we're going to refer to some outputs in that. Okay. Now, if we go back here, we can find this. So it's Elastic Load Balancer V2. How did I find this so easily before? There it is. So we need the target group ARN. So let's find out what this return value is. So the ref returns the ARN. So what we want to do first is we want to add some output sections here. We want to say outputs, target group 0, value is ref target group 0. And then just like we did before, export name sub and we'll do target group 0. Okay, so we might end up having more target groups. So we'll do that first, okay, which means we can go back here and go right here, I think it was, and say target group arn, and we'll check that because I want to say that it maybe isn't lowercase. EC2. No, sorry, it's auto scaling. Here. Target group arns. ARNS. And then we're going to go and grab this and say ALB stack. And we'll say target groups 0. So that refers to that. So this is how we're going to basically assign these EC2 instances to that load balancer. The other thing that we need is we need to add a, where is it? Up here in this security group, we need to add that ingress rule to say allow traffic from the load balancer on port 80. So let's go back here and find the EC2 security group. And we just need to add an ingress rule. So security group ingress. And in this case, we're going to change this up a bit and we're going to say source security group ID. And we'll just put a to do in here because we got to grab that security group from the load balancer. And then we're going to say from port 80 to port 80. And we need the IP protocol, which is TCP. And I think that's it. So we need the, if we go here and we find the, actually, sorry, let's check this. So it wants the group ID here. So if we go back and we look at return values, the ref returns the security group. Oh, we want the group ID. So we want this here. So if we go back over to the load balancer and we'll just say SG0 get attribute SG0.group ID. And the export name is, we'll just do this, SG0. Okay. And then here, we can take this and say ALB stack is SG0. So that really, I think, is all we need. And in here, we need to go to the EC2 and we need to go in here and say ALB stack is ALB environment. And then we'll say ALB stack okay. So we added outputs to the ALB template plus updated EC2 with the target group and SG. We're close at this point to having the first bit of it work. So we have to run a stack update here to get the outputs that we need that then become inputs into this template. Let's see. That's probably ready to go. Oh, did it kick me out? It did. I'm going to just switch my screen here for a second, okay? Be right back. I'll make sure that I have my mugshot screen for next time around. Not quite sure why it would have kicked us out at that point. We've changed this back. There we go. All right, so let's have a look at this. This will be again our small change set to do the outputs. So that should be quick. And we can check that that worked. There's our security group. There's our target group that we're going to then import into here. And this should have a bunch of changes, right? Because we're changing the security group, we're changing the launch template, and we're changing the auto-scaling group. Lots of changes. And you can see nothing required there. And based on what we changed, I don't think it's going to replace either of these two components. But let's see what it does. Okay, so easy part done. The security group's done. Target group ARNs. Get rid of that. So that's in the auto scaling group. Look at that. It's a small s. Where am I going here? It's here, right? Yeah. So that should auto roll back. So we can just push this again. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, let's see what this is doing here. The rollback's complete. And we'll just let this pipeline run again, and we should see it come to life. Here it is, same as before. Let's see what happens this time. We know the security group will work because that finished successfully last time. Okay, that's good. Now this last time failed immediately on the auto scaling group, right? Okay, at least it didn't immediately crash on us. So one typo fixed. We have to think about the other typo possibility in the, what was it, the target group we changed as well. Let's go back over here. So there's our listeners. There we go. So now we've got these instances registered and they are healthy. Let's just make sure that that actually worked through here. Perfect. So now, if just to test this, if we go here and there we go. Okay. So what we've got now is we're essentially hitting those two EC2 instances behind the load balancer, and it's just round robbing them between. So if you throw, oh, I can't put that in the chat window because I'm on I'm on two different computers. If you were able to somehow take that and type it into your browser, you would have the same thing. Okay. It would basically, I wonder if I can actually. I think I'm logged into Twitch. Hold on. Well, this is going to be a little odd, so just bear with me a second. If you take, where'd that go now? Here. Can I type in my own chat window? There we go. So if you were to throw that in your browser, you should see the same thing. I think what we'll do is when we finish all this up, we're gonna maybe, I thought about this today before we started, and work got out of hand today. Kind of having a couple diagrams that say, okay, this is what we did. Here's what we're going to do today. Because then I don't know about you, but I'm like I'm a visually oriented person in the fact that it lets me kind of understand, pictures really help kind of understand what's happening. So I was thinking we could maybe do that. Are you able to load that page from your side? And all you'll get is this same message that I'm getting. Right? Yeah? Okay, so watch this. So what's interesting about an auto-scaling group, why it's important for this type of thing is that, remember we had min of 2, desired of 2, and max of 10? Well, I could go in here and I could say, let's say for whatever reason, what I'm going to do now is basically do what they call manual scaling. Let's say I know at 10 o'clock Eastern on a Tuesday night, I think it's Tuesday, I don't even know anymore. Oh yeah, it's right up in the top of my browser. It's Tuesday, that we get an influx in traffic. So I could do this. Okay. I just effectively manually scaled the auto scaling group. And if we watch here, what will happen is in very short order, it might actually already be happening over here and it just hasn't sent the message yet. So see how we've got another machine that's marked pending? So what it's saying is that the desired capacity is now 4, but the running capacity, the current number of machines that are running, is only 2. So we're going to add 2 more. So now we've got a total of 4 machines that are running all of this environment. And the same thing, like if I go let's say for whatever reason, these 2 machines fail. Okay, something happens on them. Auto scaling will say, well, I need 4 machines. And while all of this stuff is happening, look, we've still got a machine running. So as far as users are concerned, everything's fine, right? It's working the way that, you have no interruption in service. So there we go. It's getting terminated. So I manually terminated those, and we should see machines coming to life to replace those failed machines. Maybe. Again, it's toying with us today as we're watching it. Yeah, users aren't affected, right? We should see this pop a couple more machines here. See, so what you're looking at is desired capacity. It still sees 4 instances running. So it's going to take it a little bit of time, I think. Launching a new instance. That might have been, oh, there we go. So it's updating. If we go back here. Not sure why it's doing this on us. What I should see Our 2 new machines coming to life. Oh, there we go. Patience. Okay, so it's going to replace those machines because it says, hey, we've defined it to say there needs to be 4 machines, and autoscaling says there's only 2. So it'll actually stand up 2 machines to get us back to that desired value. So there we go. That's way more than I thought we would get through tonight. And we're under the 3-hour Minecraft session we did last night. So I think that pretty much is it's like catching up on sleep, right? We caught up on the 3 hours of no work time last night with a actual CloudFormation stream tonight. So I think at this point we're gonna call it an evening. So man, thanks again. You've been hanging out with me for several hours over the last week. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna try to get a few more folks in here. Would be nice, so you're not just having a chat with me all the time. But I appreciate you hanging out. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you again probably after the holidays at this point. And we'll continue building these things out. So enjoy your holidays, whatever you celebrate, and we'll see you probably between Christmas and New Year's here. We'll come back with another stream. Yeah, man, I'm glad you liked it. It's fun to walk through it. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad you learned something. It's good to hear. If I had a bunch of people in here, we could raid somebody and act like cool Twitchers, but it's just you and I. So I'm going to go enjoy my evening. I hope you do too, man. And we'll see you in the new year, or not in the new year, probably before.